Hello, welcome.
Hi,
I'm Sage,
I'm Megan.
and this is the Squeaky Floorboard Society.
Woo!
Woo. So, today's thing is it was initially going to be two different episodes, but they weigh so heavily on each other that we're combining them today. But before we get into that, we're just going to talk a little bit. Anything exciting?
I have this mug. I already showed Sage, but I really like this little mug. It's my little ghosts.
Showed my drink collection I have right now.
The inside, I can't tilt it to show. Oh, maybe I can. It says I boo what I want.
Oh, I like that. Where'd you get it?
Marshalls.
I don't even know if there's a Marshalls here around me. I'm sure there is. I just wouldn't know where.
I love Marshalls.
There's so many Rosses and Burlingtons. I'll tell you that.
Burlington's not bad.
No, it's not. I've only ever been once. And that was when we came here. I'd only been dating him for like a month. And we came here so I could meet his parents.
I remember that.
And I went to Burlington during that. It was like after Black Friday. So the whole place was trashed.
Ignore me. There's a hair stuck to my eyelashes.
It's fine. You ignored my big red eye earlier.
I'm colorblind. I didn't know if your eye was red or not. Your eye could have been any color and I'd have been none the wiser.
Well, it looked swollen. Like, I was looking back at it. I was like, that was swollen. I learned something. So do you know why we cramp on our periods?
I do, but tell me.
It's because our cervix dilates to 1 centimeter to let the blood through. I recently found this out, and I was like, well, I guess it is true when my mom would say, oh, well, wherever your period cramps are is where you're going to labor the most.
You know what? That's actually 100% true, I think.
I back cramp so bad.
Yep, I do too.
So,
but
I have a child.
How bad are your cramps?
Like, I double over because I can't bend far enough back.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, mine have never been super duper bad, which makes sense because if you recall, for most of my labor, I was eating food.
That is true. You were.
I was eating a waffle.
My favorite thing about that entire thing was that I was asleep and you tried to call me 3 times, and then you just sent me a photo and you were like, hey.
My favorite thing was that it happened on your birthday, so now you and my son have the same birthday.
I told you it was going to happen when you told me that you were due in July, and I was like, no, you're gonna give birth on the 21st. You're like, no, that's way too early. It's not gonna happen.
And for sure, it was 3 weeks early. My son was very early.
I told you.
But yeah, your mom's right.
Birthday. So yeah, that's gonna suck for me. So today we're gonna dig into the roots of an ancient first, where the wolf, what are words?
Where?
Where the wolves don't just howl at the moon. They march into hell to fight demons. We know that Europe was burning and killing anyone accused of being a werewolf. We talked about this in the previous one. We've talked about this in the history. Fire was everything, apparently. So, yeah, okay. So the Protestant Reformation that kicked off in 1571 when Martin Luther nails his 95 Thesis to a church door turned the religious world upside down, increasing tension and amplifying the focus of rooting out perceived hearsay. So
heresy.
Heresy. Is it heresy?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you have to remind me that because every single time I've read this, I kept saying hearsay.
It's I almost said it wrong. It's heresy.
Heresy.
Like a heretic.
Well, I guess that's me because of how it's written. Okay. This is the story of Theiss of Livonia, the Livonian werewolf, a man who claimed to be the hound of God on a holy mission to save Earth's harvest. Oh my God, what are words today? By literally defeating the devil with an iron rod. So let's paint the picture. It's October 28th of 1691. Is Halloween a thing yet?
Not in the way we know it.
Okay. We are in.
They would have been gearing up to celebrate All Saints Day.
So we are in. Fuck this up. Jurgensburg.
How is it?
It looks.
Where are
Jurgensburg.
It's either Jurgensburg or Jurgensburg, depending on how Germanic it is.
A village in Swedish Livonia.
Probably Jurgensburg.
In modern day Latvia, for any of you geographical fans. The local court has summoned an old man named Theiss of Kaltenbrunn, not for witchcraft or lycanthropy, but to simply testify in a case about a church robbery. He wasn't the robber. It was just believed that he saw the robber. They were aware of the fact that the local people considered him to be a werewolf who had consorted with the devil, but they initially had a little interest in the allegations. Like, they did not give a single fuck about those. They were like, we just need to catch this robber. We need you to testify. But all of that werewolf stuff that was so unrelated to this case that the courts did not care. Now, before we get into the case, let's talk about who he was before all of this. He was known locally as an elder folk healer and something of a spiritual oddball. He was not just an average old man. He was a beggar turned mystic who had held a long reputation among the people of Livonia. He practiced folk magic and healing rituals. People in his community came to him to bless their livestock, heal illnesses, and ward off evil, especially wolves. Because again, you got to remember that during this time, it was not like how it is today. It's like a little village with like 20 houses and woods.
Right, and wolves would have been quite prevalent in Europe at this time.
So his charms and spoken incantations and home remedies, including things like blessed salt and warm beer to heal people and animals, incantations called upon the sun and moon to return stolen souls and the health to cattle, walking around herbs 3 times to make animals invisible to predators, simple wart cures like rubbing meat on the skin and burying it under the house.
What's that gonna do?
I don't know. I read that it was in several sites that I read, and I was like, why?
Theiss, buddy. I'm questioning a couple of things at this point already.
Yeah. Okay. It's not as bad as the urinating in a circle. I will say that.
Fair.
But also, like, meat under your house, that's just gonna bring animals in.
What happens if you pee on the meat and then bury it under your house? You pee on it in a circle on the meat and then you bury it.
It's a protection.
What's that do?
And gets rid of the warts, I guess.
And you become a werewolf.
All at the same time. It happens instantly. But his methods had nothing to do with Christianity. Not prayers to God, no saints, no crosses, just old pagan-style tradition and practical magic. This was part of what made him both respected and suspicious in a deeply religious society. Now, remember what we said. If you did not match the societal standards, you were accused of being literally anything that they could kill you for.
Right.
So at this time, Theiss was in his 80s. Most folks would have retired by then. Not Theiss. He had something to say. Without being accused, without being pressured, he stood before the court, I almost said the colt, and calmly announced, I am a werewolf. I was a werewolf for more than 20 years. Sir.
I know. No, who? Sir, this is a Wendy's.
We're just trying to catch a bank robber. You're over here just like, let me tell you about my werewolf ways. So first of all, for all of that shock, kind of shocked a lot of the people, but some people were just like, that checks out.
Yeah, we know.
He wasn't accused of anything. This man just offered this information up like it was a normal conversation. Now, these told the judges of how 10 years previously, in 1681, he had also appeared in court where he accused a farmer from Lemberg for breaking his nose. According to that story, he had traveled down to hell as a wolf, where the farmer, who was practicing satanic witch magic, had beaten him on the nose with a broomstick. At that time, judges refused to believe his story and laughed him out of court, but one of the judges did verify that his nose had indeed been broken. I feel like a broken nose, though. It could have been a bar fight and you're just trying not to get in trouble for it. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Bars weren't really a thing. Taverns were even kind of far in between.
Who knows? I mean, I just don't understand him.
I don't either.
I'm trying to understand his motivations. And also, who is this other farmer?
He was practicing satanic witch magic.
And did Theiss know this, and that's why he went to hell to fight the farmer?
Well, when we get into more of this case, we'll hear more about that, which leads into the Benandanti.
I see.
So he claimed to be a Christian werewolf, a warrior of divine justice. So I have a quote from the original trial record. And this quote goes, "Ordinarily, they went to hell 3 times during the night of the Pentecost, a midsummer's night, and on St. Lucia's night. As far as the first 2 nights were concerned, they did not go exactly during those nights, but more when the grain was properly blooming, because it is at this time that the seeds are forming, that the sorcerer's spirits away the blessings and take it to hell. And it is then that the werewolves take it upon themselves to bring it back again." Now, that is a quote, but not a full direct quote.
Right, because he wouldn't have been speaking English in the same manner we are as well.
That too, and it's very loosely translated, and also I had to cut, there was a lot of extra words, so I'm not sure who actually translated this, because it was
That's just how Theiss talked.
It probably was, but it was just a lot of like words that didn't belong. So like some of it was like, oh, and he went to in the, and it was like,
I'm gonna be real, it might have been me on like a German assignment in high school.
But so I was just like, we'll make this, so it's not completely direct quote. It is quoted on one of the links that I will have in the description below, but just be aware you can still find these court documents. They're just not that easy to read in general. So he said he and others like him and other hounds of God transformed 3 times a year. So as we heard, on the St. Lucian's night in December, on Pentecost, and on Midsummer's Eve. So if you don't know what these are, let me tell you. St. Lucia's Night is observed on December 13th. It is a Christian feast day commemorating St. Lucy of Syracuse, a Roman martyr. It is a significant celebration in Nordic countries, often with processions featuring children in white singing Lucian songs and serving St. Lucia buns. This day is also associated with the longest night of the year in the old Julian calendar, which led to the folklore about night being dangerous and evil spirits being abroad. And the Pentecost commemorates the descent of the Holy Spirit on the apostles and other followers of Jesus Christ while they were in Jerusalem celebrating the Feast of Weeks. This is normally observed in summer. This year, I believe it was this year, it was celebrated on June 8th. And then Midsummer's Eve, also known as the night before Midsummer Day, is a night of celebrations and traditions in many cultures, particularly in Scandinavia. It's a night where many believe magical energies are prevalent, and it's time of feasting, dancing, and general merriment, often including bonfires. I'd like to say this, everything is rooted in witchcraft.
Right. St. Lucia's Day stuff is where the kids have the candle wreaths on their heads, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. I did not look too much into those, as I felt like they probably were, for at least his case. I think I do maybe go into it a little bit with the Benandanti, but with his case, it wasn't too prevalent on those, I don't think. I got a burp. Hold on.
Right. That's just a little tidbit for the listeners, in case they were wondering. We light kids' heads on fire for it, apparently.
Apparently. There's a lot of things even like further back that were like religion-ish, and it's like, I feel like nowadays you would be in prison.
Right.
So now, how did he even become a werewolf is the real question, because there's so many stories where it was like they were bit, there was a salve, or there was a curse from a witch. So, but we don't know yet. Well, this is when he tells the judges how he first became one. Again, I need you all to know he's not on trial. He's there as what's that word called?
A witness.
Yeah, he's there as a witness. This is not his trial.
This is entirely unprompted and unprovoked.
Yeah, literally. So he explained that he had once been a beggar, and one day a rascal had a drunk toast to him. This gave him an ability to turn into a werewolf.
You're not safe at the bar. There might be a rascal.
How this is, I'll grab 2 of my drinks. How this is described is they went, clink, oh, now I'm a werewolf. So.
Well, Sage, come on. Clink the camera.
Clink. very up
Are we
close on us.
werewolves?
Yeah. Oh damn, we're not.
Oh man. Neither of us are rascals, so that's why it didn't
Yes.
work.
He furthermore related that he could also pass on this ability to someone by toasting them, breaking into the jug 3 times, and proclaiming, "You will become like me."
Does he know that, like, from experience, or?
I have no clue. This case is wild, and it's honestly a really fun one to like look into. If the other individual then took the jug, they would become a werewolf. But these claimed that he was yet to find anyone ready to take over the role. Another story says that werewolves could be released from their duty by a strike from a man with a Scrooge wrapped in goat leather, blessed on 3 consecutive Thursdays.
What's a Scrooge?
I don't know.
Like Ebenezer?
I
The whole guy?
That's the thing is I couldn't find anything on the website, and like instead of just like going to look up what it was, I was just like, I will figure it out later. Guess who didn't go find out later? Me.
I'll look up what a Scrooge is.
That's what I'm doing. What is
Oh, okay.
Scrooge? Oh, it's a whip. A whip uses the instrument of punishment.
Oh.
Or a person or thing that causes great trouble or suffering, but I'm assuming it's probably a whip. Where was I? Where's Scrooge at? So they would shed their human skin or put on wolf pelts, depending on which story you read. So what I mean is like they would be standing there, and their human, as it was described, their human skin would just melt off, and they would be a wolf. I prefer the wolf pelt one personally. Yeah. And then they would head off on a perilous mission through a place they would call the End of the Sea, a swamp near Lemberg, a place where the earth broke open and a path to hell began. So what was their task? It was to battle witches and demons, retrieve stolen crops, livestock, and the blessing of earth, and bring them back to humanity. These describe these trips with vivid detail. They didn't just sneak in, they fought with iron rods against witches who were struck back using broomsticks decorated from horsetails. He spoke of one fierce battle on St. Lucia's Night in 1690, led by a witch named, no, it's the wrong fuck up, Skystan. Skistan? I don't know.
Sounds made up.
These claim the werewolves emerged victorious, biting off noses, fingers, and stealing back barley and rye. Not for riches, but for the harvest. It sounds like a fantasy, right? But for Theiss, this wasn't fiction, it was faith. He believed the world depended on these missions. Without the werewolves, he said, the crops would fail, the cattle would die, and famine would spread. But then came the court's questions. Was he a good Christian? Did he go to church? Did he take communion? No, he didn't do any of these things, and he hadn't for decades. So why? Why? He said he was too old to understand the rituals anymore. And when they asked where the souls of these werewolves went when they died, he didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. He said, to heaven. Because they served God, not Satan. But the souls of the witches go to hell. Now, this time, no one knew that witches and werewolves were mortal enemies. Like, this wasn't something that anyone discussed.
Right.
So the judges were obviously confused. They asked him why the werewolves traveled to hell if they hated the devil. He responded by telling them that he and his brethren had to go on this journey in order to bring things back. Once more, Theiss is told that the werewolves were not servants of the devil, but of God, and that they undertook their nocturnal journeys to hell for the good of mankind. Theiss's story didn't end with this, surprisingly. Turns out he was a respected folk healer, as we know, a village medicine man. Now, this is where some of the stories kind of get a little bit topsy-turvy. But as we know, over a decade, he served local peasants well, earning a reputation for his effectiveness and gaining a status akin to the folk saint. His services were typically, I almost said constipated, but it's compensated, through small payments or bartering, often receiving food items like bread, cheese, or ale. He blessed cattle, he cured illnesses, he knew charms to stop bleedings and spells to ward off wolves. One of his incantations went, sun and moon over the sea, fetch back the souls that the devil had taken to hell, and give the cattle back life and health. Now, did you notice anything about that?
They're fetching the souls back, just like they did the barley.
Yeah. But there was also no mention of God.
Right, just the devil.
Yeah. Just nature, the sun, the moon, salt and warm beer. The judges, guess what? They were not. They were not fans of this. Why would they be? There was no mention of God in any of this. To them, this was heresy.
Heresy?
Folk magic was fine, but only if it was bound to the church. But this old werewolf with this bizarre hell crusades and his salt beer curses, did not fit the mold. Despite the testimonies from villagers swearing by his wisdom and sanity, some testified that his treatments had saved their livestock and cured their illnesses. And all of these testimonies were what probably saved his life. Despite the captivating nature of his tales and all the testimonies in his favor, the court still needed to uphold the religious and legal norms of the time. Despite his reputations as a healer and protector, Theseus lacked the adherence to the Christian faith become a focal point. Plus, the judges, led by, this is where I'm fucking up again, George Theirink, we're going to go with that, were particularly troubled by Theseus' inconsistency that werewolves were servants of God rather than the devil. This claim contradicted the established belief that all supernatural transformations were of the work of Satan. The court also took issues with Theseus' use of pagan symbolicism in his healing practices, viewing it as a form of oh my God, words.
Idolatry?
That word. They tried to make Theiss confess that he made a pact with the devil and served him, but he refused to. He also refused to see the parish priest who was sent to rebuke him. Theiss said that he was a better man than any priest and that he wasn't the first or last man to fight against witches as werewolves. This trial lasted for a year. And at this time, that is long. Modern day, depending on the trials and stuff, they can be that long. But
right.
Cases typically, even back then, were like, you walked into court, people said, oh, how many of them think that she's a witch? Everyone raises their hand. Okay, you're dead.
Right.
So for a trial to take a year at this time of someone being accused of witchcraft.
Well, but the thing is, they're not even having to debate if he's a werewolf or not. He's like, yeah, I'm a werewolf. They're literally having to have this theological debate of what kind of werewolf he is.
Yeah, and that's so funny because, like we said, he doesn't fit the mold, but he also, there's just a lot of little things that it's like, what? Dude, why?
Unprompted.
Yeah, I know. That's why I love this story so much. And why I think that he does need, his own a lot of the time. Which is why we're going so deep into him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this isn't the robbery trial that took a year. This is literally just the case against him being a werewolf. And I couldn't find anything about whether they finished the initial trial. So I can't find if that church robber ever got charged. I wish I could, because I want to know what happened with him. Or if they were just like, you know what?
This is more interesting.
Get out of here. So on October 31st, 1692, Theiss was found guilty of
heresy
and being a werewolf. The court sentenced him flogging and exile for life, a public whipping of 20 lashes. The flogging took place in the town square of Venden, witnesses by a large crowd of locals and officials. After the beating, they kicked Theiss out of the Grand Duchy of Livonia. Given how old he was and how rough life was during this time, this was basically just a death sentence to him. Now, we don't know precisely when or how he died, but let's face it, it's unlikely that he survived long after his exile. Even if he was a werewolf, he was only transforming the 3 nights a year.
Right.
So what was really going on here? Some historians like Carlo Ginzburg think that these might have been preserving old Christian traditions. Like the Benandanti in Italy, who claimed to leave their bodies in battle witches to protect crops. Others argue that he might have blended folklore, shamanism, and his own flair of drama into something completely unique. Initially, the scholarly debate on the issue of the Livonia werewolf was restricted to scholars in the German-speaking world, and it did not appear in English languages. Other overviews of European werewolf beliefs, like the Montague Summers, the werewolf of 1933. According to Dutch historian William de Belcourt, Theiss was the one who first brought attention of English-speaking scholars by German anthropologist Hans Peter Durer in his book Dreamtime concerning the boundaries between wilderness and civilization. Durr briefly discussed the Livonia werewolf in a chapter of Dreamtime entitled Wild Women and Werewolves, in which he dealt with various European folk traditions in which individuals broke social taboos and made mischief in public, arguing that they represented a battle between the forces of chaos and order. Either way, his case stands out, not for violence, not for evil, but for trying to flip the werewolf myth on its head. To claim that these beasts served God, not Satan. Theiss of Caltonbrunn died in obscurity. His story lived on not as a tale of terror, but of transformation, of a man who walked as a wolf and dared to bring light into hell. So, his tale is strange and complicated and honestly kind of inspiring in like a little bit of a badass way.
He's actually an icon. Like anybody who didn't know who he was at that trial, when he stood up and was like, they're like, "Hey, did you see the church robbery?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I'm a werewolf." Like, I know somebody in the crowd was like, "Who is this diva?"
And it's so wild too, because that's like, honestly, it's like my biggest anxiety thing is for me to say something stupid, and this man's out here just like, "Oh, you wouldn't know if I saw that bank robber? Well, let me tell you this: I'm a werewolf."
It's just he's such an icon. Like who behaves like this?
Literally,
This is
it's like,
you know where he would do super well in modern times?
where?
Walmart.
He would.
He would be the best person of Walmart.
He would have his own Walmart page.
They would have his picture on the wall. They're like world's #1 customer. He's not even buying anything. He's just in there.
He's just talking people into buying stuff that you weren't even thinking about buying because he's like, it's either I do this or I tell you my entire werewolf story.
They're like, "Hey." They're like, "Hey, do you think that this shirt looks weird or should I buy it?" And he's like, "Do you know what I think about that shirt? I think it reminds me of the time I was a werewolf."
And then you'd be like stuck in the story, so you're just gonna buy the shirt, so he shuts up. It's so crazy. So because we discussed these, his case has everything to do with what I'm getting ready to talk about and also nothing to do with what I'm getting ready to talk about. And that is the Benandanti. So I'm going away from France for a little bit in Livonia, apparently. And more specifically, Valentina, please don't yell at me. Friuli, Italy. So, disclaimer, I will pronounce also all of this wrong as well because, well, I'm just illiterate. So the Benandanti werewolves carry their own unique legend and myth. And this myth actually dies out around 1610, which is why Theiss is typically lumped in because his case was in 1692. But this myth officially is like, there's no more of this around 1610. So it's gonna sound very similar to Theiss's, but it's good that we're covering it. So the original Benandanti werewolves claimed that they were beings that stayed in human form during the day, but at night they would go to the underworld to be evil beings, mainly witches. These wolves did not so much change shape, but leave one shape to take on another. During this time, they would ensure that the paths from the earthly world to the underworld were secure. They would heal the sick, and of course, fight off evildoers. Initially, they were called the Benandanti. These fights would occur mainly on 4 different nights a year, and these 4 different nights and different time coordinates with the times of the year for planting and harvesting crops. When they weren't spending their time protecting and healing their villages or fighting off the Benandanti. Okay, good. So that when they weren't spending their time protecting or healing the villages or fighting off the Benandanti. So now the witches, I guess, are the Benandanti, and the Benandanti are the ones that are fighting, which would make sense because mal means bad. Werewolves, where they thought that they would leave their human forms at night to meet with others. Throughout the years, the Benandanti werewolves always maintained an anti-witchcraft position. However, in 1610, a group of Benandanti were brought under inquisition and they were found guilty of committing acts of witchcraft and, in fact, of being witches. And this contradicted their entire thing.
That's like the opposite of what they do.
Literally. Some say that the Benandanti was, in fact, made up of a pack of werewolves long ago. However, these same believers feel as though that they must have sadly lost their battle with the underworld witches and that these same witches then assumed the Benandanti name and were found guilty. As we know, in 1692, Theiss came forward and claimed to be one, and, well, we know his story. But it is different. But let's take it back to the Benandanti. And this was an Argarian cult with a shaman characteristics that gradually transformed under the pressure of the Inquisitions to assume the features of traditional Italian witchcraft. The Benandanti trials constitute a precious testimony for the reconstruction of the peasant folklore of this era. This research allows us to understand the significance of nature of popular witchcraft, despite from the intellectual schemes of the Inquisition origins. So, on March 25th, 1575, in the convent of St. Francisco's, the general and the inquisitioner questioned a witness that was a parish priest of a nearby village. The parish priest reported that a miller, Pietro Rottoro, who had a seriously ill son, told him that not far away lived a certain Paolo Gasparuto, who cured the bewitched and claimed to go wandering at night with sorcerers. The priest, intrigued by this miller's words, had called Gasparuto. Gasparuto told the boy's father that his son had been enchanted by witches and that for this reason, quote, the good walkers would have to go and snatch him from the witches, end quote, in order to heal him. Incited by the priest's questions, the man recounted that on a specific Thursday he would go with the sorcerers into the countryside to fight, play, jump, and ride various animals. I don't know why we're riding various animals, but we are.
What did they do? What did they do?
The women would beat the men with rods, while the men held branches of fennel. So fennel is a versatile plant belonging to the same family as carrots, celery, and dill. Unsettled by these speeches, the priest immediately went to report with the inquisitor and the parchial vicer. He led literally. And he led Gasparino to the inquisitor's father so that he could be interrogated, and he confirmed the story without any hesitation, adding new details about the mysterious nocturnal gathering. The witches, the wizards, and the vagabonds, I don't know what that is, returning from these games, tired and fatigued, entered the house to quench their thirst. Generally, they were satisfied with fresh water. However, if they could not find it, they went to the cellars and stole wine. So not only are they making us sick and everything like that, they're stealing our water and our wine. For this reason, it was always necessary to keep clean water in the house. Gasparino offered to make the dubious priest take part in the night of meetings. Others who took part in the gatherings were found in all the villages of the area, but their names could not be revealed. The parish priest, trying to make sense of this confusing tale, had concluded that there were good sorcerers who were called vagabonds, the Benandanti, who fought other sorcerers who instead procured evil. After a few days, the priest went to the village of Lassico to say mass. Here he met Gasparino again as a commissioner. Gasparino, in fact, had been very wealthy, and in another passage he mentioned his servants. Gasparino had told him about the exploits of the party the night before. So here's what I was thinking when I was initially learning about Gasparino, is that he's a very wealthy man. Now, I know how this ends. I don't know if you do. I know you did a little bit of research on the Benandanti. Do you know how
I think I do.
ends? Okay, well, then this will be
maybe
for everyone. So the substance of these depositions of the priest was confirmed by Pietro Rottoro, the father of the sick child, and treated in vain by Gasparino. Suspecting that the child had been bewitched, he had turned to Paola, since he was a good walker. Rottoro said that the Clivendale, that there was one of these sorcerers, a public crier, Meduso, who had claimed to be a good walker, to go out on one specific Thursday night between the Ember Days, quarterly periods of prayer and fasting in the calendar of the Western Christian churches. Adamus, a nobleman from Clivedale, was called to testify. He said that he was aware of these stories, but he considered them as fantasies or lies. Both the vicer and the inquisitor evidently agreed with the conclusion that the nobleman and interrupted the interrogations. These first testimonies confirmed the existence in the area between the half and the end of the 500 of complex popular beliefs mixed with known traditions. So now this is where it gets kind of fucky over with the Benandanti, is that at this time, religion was still changing and taking form. And so at this time, it's getting really dark in here. It's already almost dark outside, sorry. It gets dark out here by 8:20.
Wow.
Yeah. But at this time, it was definitely religion was still changing and trying to find its place and how they were going to present everything. And so there were so many little different villages that were practicing different traditions for Christianity and Catholicism and any other religion that was heavily in this area. And so things were getting mixed around. So many of it was like, oh, they're a werewolf, but they weren't. They were just practicing different traditions from the same religion, just from a different village.
Right.
So this is where this kind of gets a little bit fucky. It is, in fact, that the witches and sorcerers who met on Thursday's night invoked the image of the Sabbath, and these were substantial differences. The Benandanti did not worship the devil. During these trials, they were never even really mentioned in the stories. They did not abjure the faith, and they did not damage religious symbols. At the center of these meetings, however, there was this obscure rite, namely the fighting of the good walkers against the witches. 5 years later, on June 27th, 1580, the inquisitor, Friar Felice de Montfalco, resumed the case left by his predecessors and began to interrogate Gasparotto again. Now, I think it's funny because if I'm correct, again, it's been a while since we've done our research, this man is going to go through so many interrogations because they cannot find damning evidence that he's a werewolf.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to see a recurrence of the same stuff happening. So at first, Gasparotto showed up surprised at the questions. Felice then asked him if he knew any good sorcerers or good walkers, and Gasparotto denied it and started laughing. Then the inquisitor insisted and asked him if he had tried to cure Retardo's son. Gasparotto replied that he told Retardo that he knew nothing about it and could not help him. Felice asked him if he has talked about the Benandanti with the previous inquisitor. Gasparotto denied it again, but this time he began laughing harder. But he was still denying it. Felice asked him why he was laughing, and Gasparotto replied that he was laughing because these are not the things in which to linger because they go against the will of God. So this man...
Read him to filth.
Flipped it completely on this guy. Could you imagine just like being there? Because it doesn't say this in here, but I would like to think that Felice just went, because like he just went, you're questioning him all of this, and he's like, oh well, this isn't a good thing to talk about because it goes against God's will, and you're like, fuck, I'm supposed to be standing with God.
You're right,
but I'm also going to question you.
Right.
And then Felice decided to ask, well, how does this go against God's will? And this is when Gasparotto realized he had said too much and replied that there were things he knew nothing about. Sir, I'm pretty sure you could have just said, I don't know, it just does. We're talking about things that don't agree. And then you could have just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I would have just been like, buddy, I just feel like we shouldn't talk about werewolves because God probably doesn't like them.
So he had said he had never spoken of night fights with sorcerers. He had never invited the priests to these meetings. He said he didn't remember anything. Felice tried to make him speak, promised clemency and forgiveness, but Gasparotto continued to remain silent. So Felice then just imprisoned him. So the same day he was interrogated, the other good walker, Meduco, called Gamba Secura, was also interrogated. During this time, it really didn't appear that they even knew each other. Meduco said he was a good Christian and went to confession regularly. When asked if he knew of any sorcerers of Benandanti, he said that he did not know of any, and he knew only one good walker himself. Then they asked him what the word Benandanti meant, and Meduco seemed to regret his answer and tried to pass it off as a joke. He admitted that he was told several people that he was a good walker, and then he explained, quote, I am a Benandanti because I go with others to fight 4 times a year, and the nights between the ember days invisible with the spirit. We go in favor of Christ and the sorcerers of the devil. We fight with each other. We fight with the decks of fennel, and they with rods of sorghum. If we are victorious, then that year will be one of abundance. If we lose, there will be famine. End quote. Later, he said that each season requires different vegetable weapons, wheat, vines, and many others. At the heart of the nocturnal gatherings of the Benandanti emerges a fertility rite, which is modeled on the main dates of the architectural calendar. Meduco said he had not been a part of the Benandanti fellowship for at least 8 years. He explained that all of those who were born with the call were part of a company. The amniotic sac was one of the definitive marks of the good walkers, and Meduco said that he always wore it around his neck when he went to the night meetings until he lost it, and then he stopped going to the meetings. They wear the
Amniotic
placenta.
Oh. Who still has their placenta at that age?
And at this time, how are you preserving it?
I'm
guessing
scared.
salt. I'm gonna turn this
Just
back on for a second.
just a dried out
Yeah,
horrible thing.
could you imagine?
I don't want to.
When they turned 20, they were gathered to the sound of a drum, which called the soldiers together to go into battle. Then the spirit would separate from the body and fly to the conventions. The inquisitor asked him if the drum was played by a man, an angel, or a demon. Murugo answered and said that it was a man. Sometimes the gatherings were attended by up to 5,000 souls. Some knew each other, others did not. That is a lot of people. That's like the entire country of Italy.
That's all of Italy's there. Gang, gang.
That's so many people.
There's like one dude in Sicily who wasn't invited and he's pissed.
It's him and all of the inquisitors.
Yeah, they're like, that's why the inquisitors are so butthurt about this, and they have to like prove that these guys are evil because they weren't fucking invited.
They're holding a grudge.
Yeah.
So the friar asked who put this man at the head of the group. Meduco said that he didn't know, perhaps God, because they were fighting united in faith of Christ. Oh my God. They said that the man was the captain and he remained in charge of the company until he was 40. At that time, the captain was a man that was about 28 years old. He was large in stature with a red beard, and he was noble. His insignia was of white gold silk with a lion, while the warlock's banner was red depicting 4 black devils. Their captain had a black beard, was big, fat, and was of German origin. The inquisitor asked the names of the other good walkers, but Meduco refused, saying that he would be beaten if he did. The inquisitor insisted, but Meduco said that he could not reveal any names, neither of the Benandanti nor of the sorcerers, because he had promised not to do so. The oath was taken by the captains on both sides. But the inquisitor pointed out that he was no longer a Benandanti and could therefore reveal the names. Meduco gave in and said the names of 2 sorcerers, including that of a woman. So they set him free. On June 28th, Gasparotto was interrogated again and declared to have entered the company of the Benandanti when he was 28 years old, called by the leader of the Good Walkers of Verona. He had been a Benandanti for 10 years and had left the company 4 years before. The inquisitor asked him why he had not told the truth the previous time. Gasparotto replied that he was afraid of the sorcerers who would have killed him. The friar asked him if the first time he had gone to the Benandanti was Vincesca, named Baptista Vincesto, 35 years old, with a black beard, had shown up in December at night in his sleep and told him he had to go and fight. The friar asked him how he could have answered if he was asleep. Gasparotto said he had responded through his spirit, which had left his body. It sounds more like a very vivid dream.
Like he's lucid dreaming.
Yeah. The friar asked if he had ever known this Vincenzo Baptista before he appeared that night. Gasparotto replied that he had not. At this point, he began to describe the company of the Good Walkers to which he belonged. There were 6 of them. They fought with a stick, and they had a white silk flag of gold, while the sorcerers had a yellow one with 4 devils. They were fighting in the countryside of Verona and Grasdisca. He said that the captain of the Benandanti was a man from Verona with a red beard, about 30 years old. He did not know how he had become captain. Gasparotto also denounced 2 sorcerers, one from Gorizia and the other from a village near Caposistra. The inquisitor, satisfied, freed him. But by freed, this means they made him go with them to Udine, to the convent of San Francisco. On September 24th, they brought Gasparotto to Udine, who did not respect his commitment and had to be incarcerated. 2 days later, he was interrogated again.
Him alone.
At this point, y'all, I feel like you have all the information you want out of him. Like, maybe we just cut this man a break for, like, a little bit. I'm not saying forever, but a little bit. So if you haven't been counting, this is the 3rd time this man has been brought in for interrogation. Up to this point, both confessions from Meduco and Gasparotto coincided. However, this time, Gasparotto introduced a new element. He said before that Baptista materialized to him in his dreams. A golden angel had appeared while he was sleeping and told him that he would send him a good walker to fight for the crops. And Gasparotto obeyed. At first glance, it might seem that Gasparotto had introduced a Christian element to try to extricate himself from the meshes of the Inquisition without actually realizing that he was actually just making it worse. However, the detail of the angel reappears in two trials in 1618 and in 1621. Back in prison, Gasparotto confided that the details of the angel to Meduco. It is likely that Gasparotto had kept silent about the details because he sensed danger. Now, for what it sounds like, and I can't find anything that says it, it sounds like Meduco and Gasparotto were actually incarcerated together.
Oh. Huh.
Which, it seems like...
They were sitting there going, hey, he's got a red beard, right?
Yeah. Well, this is after they get transferred to San Francisco. So it's seeming like there's a good chance that they incarcerated them because they were both believed to be the Benandanti. But like they're putting them together, so there's going to be information that's exchanged.
Right.
Like you're helping them. Like this wasn't smart on their behalf. It's like you don't put gang members together.
Right.
But
even if they're a godly gang.
Yeah. You try to keep them separated when they're still waiting on trial.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still waiting on trial with the Benandanti. So.
Right.
So the mention of the angel conceived the inquisitors of the diabolical characters of the nocturnal meetings and identified the nocturnal meetings with the Sabbath. Gasparotto denied decisively and defended himself by saying that they were fighting the sorcerers. The inquisitor then attacked another point of his narration, asking where the spirit went when the angel called him. He replied that the angel had told him to leave his body. He saw him every time he went to these battles. The angel stayed close to their flag. The inquisitor, baffled by these reports, tried to decipher the confessions according to the only interpretive model at his disposal, that of the Sabbath. He first tried to ask if the angel frightened him, and Gasparotto said that he did not scare him at all and that he gave him the blessing before going to battle. He then asked if the angel made himself adored. Gasparotto replied that they worshipped him in the name of Jesus Christ. Gasparotto seemed offended by being identified with the sorcerers and his arch enemies, which honestly,
as he would.
The trial was drawing to a close. The inquisitors had managed to bring Gasparotto's bizarre confessions within his own theoretical framework. That the Goodwalker meetings were nothing more than Sabbath. Terrified by the interrogators, Gasparotto declared a few days later that he believed that the apparitions of the angels was a diabolical work. The friar repeatedly tried again to bring these tales of the Benandanti back into a more traditional sphere of the Sabbath, looking for similarities between the two groups. But Meduco insisted that the only thing the Goodwalkers did was fight the sorcerers with bunches of fennel. Meduco added that the sorcerers submitted to their infernal masters while the Goodwalkers did not even kneel in front of their captain. He said proudly that he gave the military salute to his captain just as soldiers do. The inquisitors at one point seemed to explode with anger, asking how separating one's spirit from one's body and becoming invisible could ever be considered a work of God. Meduco said that after consulting with Gasparotto, who had told him that he had seen the angel, it was likely that the man who appeared to him in his dreams, Basida, was also a diabolical apparition. So now Meduco and Gasparotto are going against each other.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, Meduco continues to narrate. He said that the man had taken his hand and asked him if he would be a good servant. He promised nothing but said that by accepting, he would do God's work and that when he died, he would go to heaven. He never heard anyone speak of Christ, Our Lady, or any saint, nor did he ever see anyone make the sign of the cross. He said that once that night meeting was over, they entered through cracks in a cellar of a house and stood on barrels of wine and drank. The wizards also did the same, but they would pee at the barrels. The two Goodwalkers were released by the injunction to come back when they were called by the Holy Office. The sentence was delayed for a year. So, we're still delaying these cases.
Right.
The certainty of going to heaven and Gasparotto's idolatry by worshiping the false angel, the sin of repentance, both were sentenced to 6 months in prison. Prayers and penances were able to be performed on various days of the year, and this period the Goodwalkers formed, according to their confessions, a real section, military organized around a captain and bound by secrecy. The bond was assumed to be weak since both of these men confessed and continually broke their supposed oaths. The adepts of this sect were scattered all over, and they were all linked by a common element, the call, to which various superstitions were attributed to. It protected soldiers from blows, it kept away the enemies, it even helped lawyers to win cases. It was an object of magical virtues. Meduca said he always carried the amniotic sac with him. He had been baptized with it and had more than 30 masses celebrated to strengthen it. Gaspardo was said to have received the amniotic sac from his mother the year before the angel appeared to him, telling him to have it blessed and to have celebrated 9 masses. According to many Italian folk traditions, those who were born with the amniotic sac were predestined to become sorcerers. Although their ceremonies appear to be purely real, there is no doubt the reality of these gatherings to which they went in spirit. As in another trial against the witch in Modena in 1532, before going to a meeting, they claimed to fall in the state of a deep trance-like state, which again, I would like to believe is probably lucid dreaming.
Right.
The interpretations put forward for these states were 2 types. One that was supposed in witches and sorcerers were individuals affected by epilepsy or other nervous diseases that hadn't been identified, or they were attributed to a loss of consciousness and accompanied by hallucinations caused by ointments. So
Okay.
that is the
Makes
story
sense.
on the Benandanti and Theiss of Livonia.
I'm going to be honest, Theiss really stole the show in this one.
He really did, and I like that because 9 times out of 10, the Benandanti is the one that steals the show. So
yeah, no, the Benandanti are, look, they're interesting in the way that every other like early neo-pagan Christian cult was.
Yeah.
Like, but they just can't hold a candle to what Theiss was cooking.
No, because Theiss was like, let me just put it all out there.
Theiss was so influential that, like you said, we can't find the results of the original trial.
No. And that's crazy because especially around that area, they kept records of everything. And so the fact that we can't find this church robbery, I'm wondering if they were just like, actually, dude, just get the fuck out of here. We got bigger fish to fry.
The Benandanti were chopped, they were cooked. Theiss of Livonia served and ate.
Yeah. What's so crazy is I only have 2 websites that I got all the Benandanti stuff from, but I'm pretty sure with these I had like 15.
Yeah. You have to look around to find info about Theiss.
Yeah, these because again, like I've said, when you research him, 1, 2,
the Benandanti always shows
5,
up.
6, 7. I have 7 websites for these. He's such a hard one to find because he's often grouped with the Benandanti, and he's just like Theiss of Coutanbrunn was claimed to be a Benandanti in France, or no, it's Livonia. Sorry, Livonia. At this time, and he was sent to exile, and that's usually all you can find. Because
I like to think that instead of dying in exile, he just like kept doing his shit till he was like 120.
He probably did. And the fact that he was
in a cave
was still pretty good.
Well, he knew all the folk remedies and shit, so like he might have been fine. Maybe he just went to like another place.
He probably did, because like again, like these villages, like they're far away, but like 2-day travel by feet.
He could do that.
And yeah, I have full faith that he could do that, and just went to a different village and was like, "Hi."
We walked in. He went,
this old medicine.
"Hi, I'm a werewolf."
And they just like, "Okay, cool. What do we need to do about
We got
this wart?"
We got this cattle over here. Can you pee in a circle around it, old man?
But yeah, so I'm really glad that Theiss got to steal the show, because he definitely deserves it, because I feel like that man does not get enough love.
No, he really doesn't.
He didn't get enough love in life, and he didn't get enough love after.
No, although, to be fair, it does seem like the villagers really loved him, because they all went to testify on his behalf.
Yeah. That was like the only thing, is that it says that like almost all of the villagers, which it's like, okay, so the court, my issues with the court is that you guys, you know that he was well respected and liked. Like, he wasn't like your stereotypical man that you're wanting, but like he was obviously really well liked by everyone. So why
well, because you know, and freaking, and you know, Galileo was doing great work with the moon and the stars, and the church still was locked him in a tower.
That is true.
They don't care.
No, they don't, because at that time it was about control.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
completely different.
hope you liked hearing about these and the Benandanti.
Yeah. Shit. I had a question and I forgot what it was.
You'll remember, and then I won't have an answer for it.
No, I don't even think it was for you. I think it was for the listeners.
But the reason that we did discuss these ones is because it does tie in with the next episode on Dogman.
We will be talking about Theiss and the Benandanti again, but it'll be much, much less in depth, and they're mostly just there to prove a point.
But we figured it'd be better to let you guys know who these people were, what they were about, before just like hearing it and then it just like not being discussed.
Right, and you're like, well, shit, I wanted to know more about that, and then we're like, no.
Yeah, so hopefully you got what you wanted from this. And hopefully we'll see you guys again next week.
Bye.
Bye.